All right, welcome everybody. Big breath out. It's been an intense week. We've all been kind of waiting for the arrival of the grid announcement, and we're finally here. So, as we strap in and continue here, we've got a special guest today to help us get through this. It's going to be Casper and I, kind of the same as last year, and somebody else to kind of with a little more experience on the broadcasting side help us get through this. And so, as we get going. Most of it will be the same as what we had done last year for those who were around last year. And for anybody new, it's going to be welcome aboard and enjoy the show, so to speak. Again, for those that were here last year, it's going to be short and to the point, kind of compared to what it was last year at the beginning. We'll go through a bit of a preamble. We'll talk about some small adjustments to the regulations, but we really do want to get right into it. And let you guys get your popcorn out and see where we land with the grid here. So as we begin here, this is tough, guys. It's something that it was difficult for you guys as teams, as drivers, as engineers preparing for this. If you're new, not sure how we function as an organization in race control, for the people that were coming back, knowing what the stakes are, so to speak, knowing what it's going to take to make the grid. And we understand that. We understand the effort that's involved in this preparation as you go through registration and pre-qualifying. And I guess you could say this is my coach side speaking. I guess you could say in approaching this, and as we go through, there's going to be a big handful of people that don't make the grid, and I think it's very important for everybody to understand that if you didn't, it's not necessarily because you didn't perform well. It is truly because we have a grid this year that was excellent. When we were in the pre-qualifying race and we saw teams chatting about it as well, there was no space anywhere, and that's the type of grid that we have this year. The competition is that high, and naturally in competition, when you find yourself up against teams like that who may have prepared that little bit more, or have just that little bit of extra experience, that's sometimes the difference. And again, it's not to say that the teams that didn't make the grid weren't prepared well or didn't compete well or show up well on day of. It's just that sometimes in competition, that's what happens. So for everybody that does make the grid today, a warm welcome from all of us, and we are really looking forward to the season. We all think it could be one of the most intense seasons we've ever had if pre-qualifying and the teams that we have on the grid are any indication. And for the teams that haven't made the grid, we do hope that you will stick around. You'll see how the league operates during the season. You'll watch some races, and that you'll spend that time putting in the effort to figure out what do we need to do to kind of just bump ourselves up to that next tier, so that we are in the fight and we are competing for a spot next season. And we do hope that we will see you back next season. So with that, I guess coach's preamble out of the way, we'll get into a few specs for the upcoming season, and then we'll get right into it, guys. Before we do that, and before I kind of hand it over to Casper to get us into some of those, we would like to welcome Samil, who I think most everybody here will probably know from broadcasts on Race Spot, from our series and many other series. So Samil, thank you very much for coming today. Definitely stoked to have you here. And to help us out on the broadcasting side as we move along here. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Julian. I just had to be here, right? Another beginning for the IVRA Endurance Series. And after all the fun that we've had last year, it just made sense to come back in. And this is going to be a little bit crazy. There's so many good teams. I've had a brief look. I still don't know exactly who's in there, but just looking from the invites as well. Man, this year seems absolutely amazing. And Casper, man, firstly, what's changed this year? There's so much that's happening. And first of all, we've got a partner.
We do indeed. I think the biggest change this year is going to be the addition of the GT3s. There's going to be some more traffic for the prototypes to deal with, but also on the flip side of that, for the teams who are in the GT3s, they're going to have other GT cars who are faster than them but closer on pace to deal with as well. I think it's going to introduce a different dynamic to the races that we've seen last season. We still got the 4-class structure, so still the same amount of races and the same amount of podium battles, but different and more different cars on the grid. So that always makes for a more interesting race.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much. There's the different classes. There's VCO coming on board as a major partner of the IVRA Endurance Series and the calendar as well. We, of course, split the season up into two. There's the fall season and the summer one. The spring one, I'm sorry about that. But still, it's going to be crazy, right? 3,000-kilometer races. Julian, this time, I think we've picked some really good ones for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And, when we approached the season this year, we took a step back. We listened to some of the things that teams were saying about, which type of cars work best on different circuits, and especially for the Endurance Series, having these really high downforce cars in a couple of the classes, and then the GT3s, spreading that out, it just works so much better on proper Grand Prix circuits, and that's the direction we really tried to head this year, and I think that's going to lend super well to the classes that we have and the drivers and the teams that we have on the grid.
Exactly. First up, we go to the Nürburgring, the 1,000 kilometers of the Nürburgring, then at the Red Bull Ring. Seriously, that is going to be some challenge for all the teams and drivers. And finally, we end up at Barcelona for the 1,000-kilometer race right there. That's for the fall season. In spring, we're back again with Watkins Glen firstly, then to Interlagos, and finally finishing off at Road Atlanta. Quite the calendar for both the cases. But Casper, I'll come back to you for this one. About the invites, right? Now, many might be wondering, why do we have such limited slots? So why do we have invites coming in the first place for the series?
Well, first of all, it's the top 2 in each class last season that got an invite. Of course, you do well in the season. That means, we'd love to have you back. And we hope that the teams who did well had a good time, and they are back this season. And secondly, last season we had, at the start of the season at least, we had an incident limit in place. And based on that, a rule for invites. Now, midway through the season, we dropped the incident limit. So that had a bit of an effect on how that rule was going to work. But we ended up figuring out a way of still sort of adhering to the spirit of that rule for the CPI. And that's why we ended up with the list of invites that we sent out. Now, it must be said, not all teams who did receive invites got back to us. And perhaps that's a good thing, because otherwise the pre-qualifying race would have been even more intense. And we would have had an even more difficult job trying to sift through all of the teams for this selection. But Sumil, I'm curious as well from what your expectations are going to be. So based on what you saw last season, and the changes that we've talked about so far, what do you think is going to happen this season?
That's the one thing I was about to ask both of you, but I'll go ahead, no worries. But seriously, I expect this to be nerve-wracking on all ends. I remember last year watching each race, and in the middle, I was just confused, right? You normally end up planning your strategy before, and as a broadcaster, right? Okay, X team might be in for the win, or Y team might be in there. When it all changes midway through the race, through things like safety cars and more drama, that is what I love about IVRA. That is what we're going to see this year. And honestly, even with a brief look at the grid, I get a feeling that this one is going to be super competitive. Going to be crazy. What are your thoughts on this, Julian?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super stoked. I think in every single class that we have, really front to back, it's gonna be action packed. It's gonna be tight. And I think just similar to every single season we've had so far, you have no shot at kind of betting on who is going to win in any given class, or in any given race for that matter. Things happen in the race, safety cars come out, and often we see people who are leading, fall back to, middle of the pack because of their strategy. So it's going to be very, very good to see what happens. And I think, with that in mind, maybe we can start to have a look and see who's going to start setting our grid up.
And
Unless
Casper, are you
Casper
ready
has
for
a final take here.
And what about you, Casper? Are you ready to have a few more strands of white hair, considering how things can get a little bit crazy in the Endurance Series?
I think, well, I'm only 26. I'm not ready for that yet. But with the lineup that we have selected here, I think every single race in every single class is going to be a cracker of a race. And yeah, with the safety cars, races can be turned on their heads, but the top teams will float to the top every single time, and we've got plenty of those that we can go through. And to start with, I think we'll go through the invites first of all. Of course, the teams with invites already know that they will be on the grid. And the first team that we have selected with an invite is, and I'll go through our rehearsed process of not revealing the car until it's come from behind the bushes here. It is a Swedish team. They've had a bit of an up and down season last season. There we are. There's Hell Racers. They had a bit of an up and down season, but we know on their day that they can be really quick and they can be a serious contender for victory. So we based on their invites, they did well last season to get an invite. So we think that they should do well this season again.
Yeah, exactly. Hell Racers are constantly right there up in the mix. I remember Barber was a very good race for them. And seriously, there's always a good feeling with Hell Racers, isn't there, Julian? With their livery being so good, we just want to see them doing well all the time.
Absolutely. And, we've seen them continuously fighting for, positions in all different classes, since they've been here. And, definitely a big welcome back and excited to see what they can do again this year.
Yeah, should be fun. Always good to have the Swedes coming in. But it's time for our second team. Who do we have in next?
Yeah, another team that's been around for a while now, and they've had a few cars that they've entered, so we'll see what happens with them. But they certainly did a good job last year to finish third in LMP Pro, and we hope that they can fight up at the top again this season. It's Alpine Stars, Geodesic Racing.
And looking at that lineup there's a few guys that are pretty quick. So once again, we know they've got speed, third in LMP Pro, so they'll be challenging for at least podiums and wins, if not another title.
Yeah, exactly. They were so good last year. I remember the entire team just having that air of confidence, right? And we remember that first race at Spa, that big one, they were the ones who came away with the win also at Mid-Ohio. So keep a keen eye on Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing. They've always just been there with the LMP2, and what could have been is the question they were asking at the end of the season. Well, it's a good chance to come back in and just test them out, because this time the grid is even better and the competition should be even more fun with them.
Absolutely. And as we move on to the next one here, it's a team that hasn't quite been around the length of time that the first two that we've introduced here has been, but they certainly made their mark when they showed up on the scene, on the IVRA scene at least, last season by winning the LMP Pro and overall championship. So another team that we're very much looking forward to having back with Delta Sport, who will brand a new number this year in the number 4.
This is a team that's in the real world doing some good work as well with their work in education, combining education, sim racing, and engineering to help develop their little corner of the world. And so it's always nice to see sim racing applied in such a manner to provoke the minds of children to think outside the box, which is definitely something that is useful in IVRA series.
Yeah, STEM programs is what they specialize in, Delta Sport U4K. And what a team. Last year just coming in and introducing themselves with a bang. And there were so many great fights that they had with so many other teams. More on that in a second. But seriously, deserving champions right at the very end. And their lineup, right? Always such a big one.
Absolutely. So as we move on to the fourth invite here for the LMP class, a team that again was on the grid last year. They had their ups and downs, but they certainly showed us that they can perform at a high level. And so we welcome them back after a very solid finish in the LMP-Am division, and it's PND Racing.
last season in the AM class, but consistently giving the pros a headache, and even
Yeah.
leading overall races at times.
Yeah.
And I think Sunil, you have a good memory of this team as well.
I do. I remember Phillip Island, and they were the ones who actually came across and won Phillip Island. Also, that final round back in Motegi. And I don't get it. Last year, the AM category was a bit funny because the AM teams were so often going out there and pressurizing the pros as well. So the way they improved last year was amazing, and P&D Racing were a good example of just that. And this year, of course, with there being only one LMP category, I actually am willing to see what happens there. Can they push hard and maybe fight the likes of Delta Sport as well?
Agreed. Very, very much looking forward to that, especially given their pace last year, as Casper said, in fighting those top teams. Okay, I think we're ready for the next one here. Another team who last season had multiple entries, not even just in endurance, but across all of IVRA series. They'll be making their way back again in the LMP2 category, fiercely forward with that beautiful livery that's distinct. You're going to see it no matter what when it comes across the camera. And again, I think it's a team that we're looking forward to seeing how they're going to compete in a single class without Pro-Am divisions within it. They certainly showed pace last year in the AM category, but very excited to see how they do with one class this year. What do you guys think?
They won the LMP-AM class last season. So if there is one team from that class last season who you would think can challenge the pros, it would be the champions, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
looking at that driver lineup, we know there's some quick guys in there again. So yeah, again, looking forward to seeing how far the Lions can take it.
Ah, yeah, exactly. The Bumblebees were awesome. And Lions come Bumblebees, whatever you like to call it. But seriously, all the time, fiercely forward were there, amazing in the AM. In the pros, things were a bit decent for the 34, but I'm sure this year, with just focused efforts, they're going to be even faster.
Most definitely. And as we move on, we're going to see who their other competitors are in the invites here, and then it's going to get spread out a little bit later. We're almost at the end of the invites for the LMP2s. And as we move on to the next one, another returning team who was on the grid for the first time with us last season, it's Pure Sims. And, they showed up well. Another team that we weren't quite sure, how they were going to compete in their class. But, from the start, they really showed up. And, every race we kind of counted on them. I guess not counted on, but we could rely on them being in the kind of the top pack, just given their racecraft and their pace. So I'm personally very excited to see what they're going to do again this year, and I think we'll see them fighting in the top pack again.
I think so. They ended their season on a high with a third place at Motegi. So if that line continues, then they'll be up there again this season.
They just ought to.
I think we may be into the next one here. We'll just jump right in there. So another team that, again, kind of like perennial contenders, for the podium last season. And seems like they're a heavy hitter, given what we saw last year. But again, with the single kind of class structure without the Pro-Am division within it, I feel like it may be an anything goes type deal. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
If I look through their results here, I can see 2 wins, Motegi perfect points, halfway leading as well. A second place, a third place, a fourth place. Only 34 points off the title. So unless the field is a lot stronger this season, I mean, it's quite a bit stronger, I think, overall. But they should still be up there, and Delta Sport should be ready for another fight.
I mean, RSO, they were always there, right? They just lost the championship by such a small margin. They were trying something different. And that's the only thing I can tell about RSO. But seriously, this year, I feel they've just packed a lot, right? They haven't competed in most other endurance series because they wanted to focus their efforts here. And how exciting does that sound when a team like RSO does that?
Absolutely, 100%. And we wish them all the success again this year, amongst the other invites, who we now come to an end to for the LMP2s. And as we come to an end for that, we're going to head straight into the GTEs. Slightly smaller group that we have sent invites out for, but nevertheless, a group that I think all of them are similar to the ones we've just seen in the LMP2s, going to be fighting and competing at the front, and are certainly names that everybody will recognize. And this first team that we have here, again, a team that kind of ran the spectrum in IVRA, so to speak, last year. Started off strong, I think, really in the summer series, and dug in from there and kept competing and nearly swept championships in club sport last year, and within endurance did very well too. So we're happy to welcome back Huizinveld for another season, and very, very excited to see what they can do as defending champions.
I know from experience racing against them that that these guys are quick. They can put a season together. We saw that last season as well. There were some good battles with Maniti, and also all of the other cast of cars that we had on the grid. But ultimately, they came out on top once again, and they'll be looking to do the same again, I'm sure.
And in every category here, club sport, GT sprint as well. I mean, they just made the Corvette work, and the way it looks right now with delivery, it's like Jackson Storm from Cars, right? There's this air of confidence around Huizinveld. They've done it before, they can do it again. Oh man, I'm pumped up to see how the competition fares against them now.
Completely agree, and very, very exciting. We'll definitely see if this next GTE invite can do the job. Another kind of perennial IVRA grid member, another team that's been around for quite a while, and last year were only one of 2 Dutch entered BMW M8s, which, I mean, not too hard to tell, maybe from the colors of their car, but very excited to see what they can bring to the table this year.
I mean, I should say, as a fellow Dutchie, this is one of my favorite liveries, simply because of the color, of course. I should explain here as well, just on the invites structure. Based on last season, Virtual Motorsport got a GT3 Pro invite. However, they found a team that had a GTE invite, and they were able to swap their invites. And as such, they are now in the GTE back again for another season.
Well, that's interesting. That's a bit of a first. But they were interesting last year. They finished second at Phillip Island. That was their major result. And this year, they've got to do something better, right? There's got to be some preparation in there. And I'm pumped up to see how they stack up.
Absolutely. Strategy not only on the track, but off the track to get back to those GTEs. And our final GTE invite, again, a name that is relatively new to us, kind of came as their first race in the summer series. And ever since have stuck around and have been showing up in a big way. It's Maniti Racing, and last year very close to the title. Really, the last race, it came down to what the top 4 teams were going to be doing there at Motegi, and unfortunately they ran into some bad luck. I think it was about halfway through under one of the restarts, and it just the dice didn't roll their way on that day. But I think that we can definitely look forward to them having a chip on their shoulder and coming back and trying to prove that they can fight and take the championship home with them.
I've already heard plenty of fighting talk from them to take the challenge to Huizinveld again, and also to the rest of the grid, of course. I remember that restart, I think about a third of the field spun, including them. So I'm not even sure it was their fault. It was just, like you said, the dice just went the wrong way for them. And that's racing, but it does... I'm not going to say the bad word. It's not fun when that happens.
Agreed.
Can you tell I'm not a professional at this?
Hey, that's all right.
We're
rolling with the punches here, just like some of these teams on track. All good. So with that, we're gonna roll into the next group here of invites, which are the GT3 Pros, excuse me. And for the first one, a Canadian team, good old Canadian boys, as anybody in hockey may know. We have the 225 car, Quasar Sim Racing, and you know, a team that kind of showed up a couple of seasons ago, and they're quiet, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, sometimes quiet teams, they're quiet because they're not making trouble, they're not getting into incidents. They may not be winning, but they're always in the fight for positions that will matter and that are meaningful in the points. And I think that that's something that we'll see from them again this season.
Just, I think it's a shame they didn't pick the AMG last season. They went with the unpopular car choice in the Ford.
Yeah.
The AMG car count is quite low. I don't think I'm spoiling
Yes.
anything because that's just the submissions, not even the entry list. But they're in the Porsche now, so it's a bit of a different layout than the Ford, different concept, but I'm sure they can make that work as well.
Yeah, I mean, we were always wondering, right? Can Quasar make it work with the Ford? There was a feeling, right? Given the right car, they could always get a big one. Now, it's just a matter of, is the Porsche the right one for them? I'll tell you what, the livery, oh my word, that was just stunning.
Especially on the Ford, absolutely agree. And you know, most notably at night when those
Yes.
cool side lamps on the Ford come, and it highlights their livery
Seriously.
so well. Yeah, it's awesome. And you know, for everybody that hasn't been with us for a while, we'll talk a lot about liveries. It's something we enjoy over here. Okay, so Quasar, our first GT3 Pro entry as an invite, and the second one did very well last year as well. They competed, very well in the AM category, the GT AM category, and actually were runners-up in that season. It's Vector Sim Racing.
And another livery that stands out, the bright green. We have a few green teams on the grid, but I think this is as much green as is on this car. I think there's a saying that green race cars are unlucky, but I don't think that's
Really?
true at all. I mean, they came second in GTAM last season, so if that's unlucky, then I'd rather be unlucky than lucky, to be honest.
That's fair. You can see my excitement in that, learning about the green cars. I actually did not know that. And actually, anybody that was with us last year for this too, Casper made a great quip on their name, which completely flew over my head with Vector. But we're not repeating jokes today, as it were. Okay.
So you're telling me there's not going to be any talk about pizzas today? No?
Oh, maybe we'll get there. We'll see. I think tensions are high already.
But the team that should not be named has not entered, so
That's right.
Sadly.
Yeah. Okay, as we keep the count going here, a team that people will know for their number, it's Team 11, and have done a great job in the past couple of seasons. Were runners-up in the GTE class last season, and are now switching over to the GT3 class to try out the new 911 GT3R as kind of perennial Porsche drivers. What do you guys think of Team 11?
I think this is another team that has got their livery game down. Their previous livery was good. This livery is good. Livery is a bit newer, so maybe not quite time yet to say I look forward to what they will do next, but I already am looking forward to what they will look like next.
Seriously.
They packed such a fizz last year, right? I mean, first year coming in, just barely losing out on the GTE championship. Now they've got an entry in GT3 Pro as well. Now that is going to be interesting. They adapted so well to GTEs in their first year, right? Can you imagine what it's going to be like in the GT3s, especially when you have all the other teams that we're about to mention as well? This grid is amazing, and 11, they always just pack that punch.
Absolutely. And I think that just like you said, we're going to see them up at the top fighting again consistently this year, along with some other very strong teams. So very excited to see what happens with Team 11. And as we roll on here, the final GT3 Pro invite. A team, coming out of France, and I think it was their first season last season with us, but made their mark. Showed up strong and came away 5th in the GT Sprint season actually last year. So looking forward to seeing what they're going to be able to do here in the GT3s.
I think what I liked about Andres last season in GT Sprint is that they were consistent. They were always sort of there, and that's a good thing to have in an endurance race. It was the final race when they finally got to that top step, but the whole season before that is what got them the 5th place and not that single win. So if they can do the same again this season and build on that consistency, then they'll do well, I'm sure.
They were just able to keep out of trouble so well last year. And that race at the Mo Sport Park was just a perfect example of that. One of their star drivers, Maxime Marriott, has switched over teams though. He's gone to Fiercely Forward. So maybe that could be a slight takeaway. But still, let's see. Let's wait and watch. I think N-Race have got that consistency element within the team, not just in the drivers. Whoever comes and goes, that will stay with them.
Absolutely. And as we get through N-Race Esports here, we move into the GT3 Pro-Am invites. And our first one will be another team that is hailing from France and also has a new livery, which for me personally is a nice step up from last season. It's VEC Sim Racing.
VEC Sim Racing, one of those teams that is everywhere on iRacing, it seems. In every single league, there will be a VEC car somewhere. All the way from the top down to the smaller starter leagues, you can find one of these white, blue, and green cars.
Absolutely. So very much looking forward to them in their returning season and what they are going to do on the grid here. And now changing geography a little bit, although still in Europe, a team that stands out like potentially some of their dishes that they're known for in their name, the Rusty Spatulas, a Finnish team who showed up and none of us were quite sure what to think of the name, but did their job on track and raced very well, did very well in their first season in the LMP class, and they're back now in the GT3 Pro-Am category.
Reading through their results here, they didn't get a win, but their no score at Motegi cost them the title, I think. Yeah. They're 67 points off the title with a no score, so it's one of those teams, just like Andres, that can build on consistency to put together a good season.
Well, you wouldn't expect them to be very vocal in the interviews at the end of the race, that's for sure. But the fact is, they will be making it there, right? They are fast, and they showed that pace all year round. Especially, Imola, that was a strong point. Got the halfway points with Motegi. Yeah, that one stands out like a sore thumb for them.
Definitely. And just like the Rusty Spatulas, this next team is a team who were in prototypes last season, but will be making the shift to GT3s this season as well. Although probably not too unfamiliar with the class themselves. A team that's been around for a while, it's Nomad Sim Racing.
And I think another team that has a strong livery, the bright colors, good scheming, and it always reminds me of Australia. It might be because of I think it's a kangaroo on the top. I can't quite see. But they are in fact British. So I'll have to investigate and see why it feels like an Australian team when I look at the car.
Well, the Nomads won't have to travel quite a fair bit, right? Only 3 races in the fall calendar. But again, you want to see them succeed. You want to see them do something special. Again, change of cars, right? Last year they were in the LMP AMs, now in the GT3Rs. It's a bit of a shift, but they can do it well.
Absolutely. And as we move on from Nomad, we look to another team that has a long-standing kind of record in the series, and certainly have their own very recognizable color combo on the car, and have gone through a few different name iterations, although their main Torque Freak moniker has always been there. And
You gave it away before the car came in.
oh, brutal. We're welcoming back the 358, the Torque Freak racing car.
I should explain again on the invites front here. This Torque Freak got their invite because of the Adequate racing team who raced last season. That's the team that got the invite. But Adequate merged with Torque Freak, so they've sort of, I don't know if you want to say, sort of stolen the invite to a bigger organization, but they certainly took advantage of their merger there.
Like the Bugs Money meme, it's our invite. It's not yours.
Exactly.
That's right.
No, but there they are. I mean, always with Torque Freak, there's some great performance coming in. This is just going to be interesting to see how they adapt to this challenge now.
Absolutely. And, another team that is known for their high level of adaptation and, being able to compete consistently. We have up next a team that would have been a title contender last year if it weren't for a small administration error, I think, which resulted in a 0 round for them. But it's High Caliper Autosports. So we're going to be, at least for me personally, very interested to see what happens, this year from them. I think it's a team that definitely they put in the time to compete at a high level. And although they're not in the class they were in last year, I think that we may see them competing in the GT3s up at the front.
I would certainly say so. I mean, they 2 wins, 2 second places. If that's not a potential title contender, then I don't know what is. I mean, it's a different class, but some of the teams they will recognize from their class last season as well. So they should be up there, and they should be looking forward to another strong performance.
Definitely. And with that, we move to the final of the GT3 Pro-Am invites. And again, a team that is a big name and that has kind of like, put their stamp on their progress and what they want to achieve within IVRA. It's Maniti Racing in the 378 in one of the lone Mercedes, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, one of the few. They actually made a last minute change to the Mercedes. And this is the first of a few teams with 2 invites. I think Maniti definitely has the driver lineup to be able to field multiple strong entries. And the Pro-Am class, I think for a team like Maniti is a good fit to sort of get their driver lineup up to scratch and develop some of their drivers. Of course, we've got the regulations that say we need a Sapphire driver in there for at least half the race. Mm-hmm. So that will be a good spot for Maniti to put some of their younger talents in.
Yeah, Maniti always focus on that, right? Just developing younger talents everywhere, whatever series it is, GT4s, GT3s. And they actually raced the same GT3 in Sports Car Open, so they've been recently testing that car out, and it may seemingly be the unfavored choice, but they've got ample of time in that car to pull out something special.
I shall interpret that as SEO preparing for IVRA.
There we are.
We went there. Okay, guys, so that's it for the invites. That gets us through the invite list.
Yes.
Any thoughts before we move on to the grid announcement for the new ones here?
Even if we didn't have any grid announcements, I think that would be an amazing season with those cars.
Seriously. Yeah, grid of their own. Okay, let's do it then. So now it's truly time for the popcorn, Tim. As we get into the actual grid announcement here. So this first team, it will be in the GT3 Pro-Am, and it's a team who has been around in the past a few seasons ago, but they're back, and we are happy to welcome them back. It's 49 Motorsport.
Wow, what a livery.
There's a lot going on there.
But it's pink. Nobody ever uses pink. That's brilliant.
Absolutely, it stands out in a crowd. That's for damn sure.
Yep. And yeah, it's definitely going to stand out this year, and we hope that with their return, they'll be able to stand out as well with their performance. So, good luck, fellas, and we'll see what you can do. But again, welcome back to the grid. And just before we, sorry, Samil, were you going to say something there?
Oh no, that was me. I see that
Okay.
we've already managed to avoid one medical incident, which I'm happy with.
Very good. Yes. Before we move on to the next one here, just so everybody's aware, it's a completely randomized order to the way that we're announcing it. So unlike the invites where we went through in order, this is there is no particular order to any class or to any team whatsoever. Just so you guys are aware. And with that, let's move on to the second one here. A team that will also have a very recognizable livery with their colors, similar to what we've just seen with 49, and a team that is another team that's returning after several seasons with us. They had an invite to the GT3 Pros, and they really wanted to show what they could do in the GTE, and we're happy to welcome them back to the GTEs for this season.
Absolutely. They've always been sort of there in the field, looking for another pink car, actually, Sabil. So there's two. Last season it was fully pink, and now it's only a little bit pink. But nevertheless, more pink on the grid.
Yeah, I miss the more pink. But again, with Samba Racing Team, always somewhere near the upper midfield. That's been the case for them in the last year. And in VIR, they got the podium. And considering the circumstances, that was just brilliant from Samba Racing Team. So a lot to expect. And their name is also just much like that, right? There's always an air of calmness and relaxation. This year will be, I think, a little bit more wild, more like a Samba, considering how the grid has been.
Absolutely. And as we dance on from Samba to the next invite, this team, they have always found a way to kind of be at the front in the prototype field. And they took a year out last season, but they're back, and we expect to see them at the front again, just as if they've never left. And given their driver lineup and what we've seen from them in the past, I think that's definitely something that they're capable of. It's VRS Satellite Racing.
Absolutely. I remember a few seasons back, I think in our first season that we did in DGFX, as it was called, they were already there. I think in the HPD it was then still, and they were at the front. Yeah. They moved on to the LMP1s, they were at the front. And so I'm sure in the LMP2 now, they will also be at the front again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with Satellite, right, they're so good with prototype cars. And especially, I remember they were last year here only for one race. And in that one race, they nearly got P1. They just were second at Barber. And I love that. They've got quite a good lineup all the way through. And with prototypes, they're especially strong.
Definitely. And very much looking forward to seeing what they'll end up doing. And as we move on from them, we'll go to a different class again. Back to the GTEs. It's a team that was on the grid with us last year and performed well, although this is going to be a different class for them, despite being in the same class that they were in last year with a different team, or a sister team, I should say. It's Team RSO in a Porsche 911 RSR.
I think another team that the GTE teams should be afraid of. If they're as fast in a GTE as they are in an LMP2, oh boy.
Oh, yep. 100%.
Talk about recruitments, right? Matt Stogge Hertzfeld, he moved from Helsingborg to RSO. And that is just a biggie. He was one of the star performers for Helsingborg in the GT Sprint Series, where Helsingborg won the championship, by the way. So having him in, I think is going to be quite a strong point for RSO this year.
Definitely, and definitely looking forward to seeing how they'll perform in the GTEs. And another GTE coming up, actually, as we move on here from RSO. A team that was on the grid with us in the past, and definitely a team that Casper and I have had plenty of experience with battling on track, and certainly was always enjoyable for us. It's German sim racing in their RSR.
And I think on the livery front, I'm pretty sure we said this last time, and I know we're not going to repeat ourselves, but I do think that is one of the best, if not the best, liveries in iRacing. With the different color combinations that they can do, with the eagle on the side, the Nordschleife on the roof.
Oh, it's so great, eh?
Just special. Just the way they've executed it. There's a lot going on, but there's a lot going on in a calm way. I just love that with German sim racing. And they've, I mean, as you guys rightly mentioned, they're almost everywhere, right? German sim racing, always putting up a big show. And even last year, they were pretty impressive. But then again, just that consistency, but with good time to prepare. I think they'll be back with some big preparation and some big plans for this year.
Definitely, absolutely agree there. And now moving on from a couple of GTE entries, we'll go back to the LMP class again, for a team that again, they were on the grid with us a few seasons ago and had a bit of a hiatus, but we were happy to see their registration come in and have a potential reintroduction with us. And in fact, they do, and they'll be competing in the LMP2 class this year. It's the number 27 Element Sim Racing.
Thinking of their team naming scheme, the car is red, so that will be the fire variant of their team. I'm sure they'll hope to be on fire on the track, not literally, but figuratively.
Well, if only iRacing could add that in, but that's spot on. And with Element, right, it's going to be a fun year. They've packed everything up together. I'm sure, but good. Again, there's been such a long off season, right? So all the teams can prepare and prioritize their efforts. With Element, I think that's going to be a big helping hand.
Definitely, and hopefully they have put in that time, and we're going to see them back on the grid after their absence and fighting for those top positions. Now we look forward to. Sorry, Cass, were you going to say something?
Sorry to keep interrupting you. I see something. A good question in the chat here. What track and corner is this? I think we'll award 10 internet points for who knows that.
Oh yes.
Ah.
Oh well, there we go.
Maybe
that was quick.
That was very quick. Nice one.
Well done, Carter.
All right, 10 internet points. Enjoy them. Okay, as we roll on here, past that corner into a new one. It's another GTE entry, and one that is going to be a multiple car team entry on the grid again with us. They've been around for several seasons now, and they've, just like a lot of other teams, they've been putting in the work and have slowly been chipping away at those top positions. And another team that we're very much looking forward to seeing what they're going to do in this class this year.
Yeah, and title challenge in the past in this class. Glad to see some of returning drivers as well. I know they had a bit of an issue with their driver lineup in the middle of the season with the regulations we had in place there. Another change there in the regulations for this season, so no more of that, and hopefully that means that they can put on a proper title challenge.
Yeah, and that was such a big factor, right? But of all the rounds they could compete in, 3 out of 4, they got podiums, and they were in 3rd place for all of them. So they've got a lot to prove this year, Geodesic.
Absolutely. Now, as we move on from Geodesic, the team members on this team, they've been on our grid before, but under different teams, and again, it was, in part because of that regulation that they couldn't continue to compete last season. And we know that at least one of their team members, Rune, has chewed his nails off completely already in preparation and anticipation for this. But they have made the grid in the GT3 Pro class with their number 255 car. It's a 5-star motorsport.
I think Rune actually, he had it so bad he didn't even want to watch this. I think he's gone to watch a movie somewhere, so he'll look this. He'll probably just fast forward through and see if he's in there. If he sees some yellow and black, and then he'll be glad.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, right? I mean, who's gonna tell Runa in the end? That's the fun part. But it's awesome, right? I think only 6 months since, not 6, 8 months since Five Star Motorsport has been formed, and there they are already making your way. I mean, you're there. I think their way into the IVRA Endurance Series. Quite a good start for them already.
Definitely, and their driver lineup is definitely a strong one, and one that we think can compete this year, especially given what we saw
Course,
in the
of course.
pre-qualifying race. And now, moving on from them, we go back to the LMP2 class for a team that has been with us in some other series, but haven't really dipped their toe into endurance series much yet. And as their first outing in the endurance series, they're looking to make an impression, as they have another series with us. It's Impulse Racing in the 56 LMP2.
I think whatever car you put this team in, they'll be fast. I see some drivers there that I know are already fast in LMP2s. So to put those together in a car for a season,
Oh,
gotta be great to watch.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so many, right? We've seen them in TCRs. We've seen them in what? I think GT3s as well. I think what? 911 GT3 Cups as well. Impulse are just everywhere.
absolutely. And good luck to those guys in this season, as they're first with us on the endurance series grid. And as we look forward to a new season with that, we look forward to a team that they made their debut in IVRA last season, and it was in the GT Sprint Series, which is now the HyperX GT Sprint Series, which self-plug. Registration closes soon, guys, and girls. If you're still wanting to get in there, get over there. But the Archer brothers, they showed up. They were able to get a couple of podiums and ended up finishing 6th overall in the standings. And we saw their registration come through, and we saw kind of the consistency that they had and what they were able to do in that pre-qualifying race. And we welcome them to the grid and endurance now, and we really hope that they'll carry over what they were able to do in the GT3 or the GT Sprint Series, from last year.
Absolutely. I think their GT Sprint Series experience at Motorsport perhaps helped them a little bit in the pre-qualifying race, but I'm sure there was other teams with other experiences elsewhere that Archer brothers didn't have. That was hard to say. But yeah, I look forward to seeing what they can do again. I haven't seen them in an endurance race yet, but should transfer over pretty easily. At least the car class is the same.
I think so, and I think they'll manage well. Now, from the GT3 Pro-Am category, we switch over to the GT3 Pros, and another team that's coming into the season, multiple registrations in different classes for them, and indeed they will have a second sister car on the grid with their 229 GT3 Pro BMW. It's Hell Racers again.
One of a few Scandinavian teams on the grid, and with their livery is very distinct, very recognizable, and very Swedish. I've just realized that for the first time now looking at it. It is actually the Swedish colors.
Yeah. Can they drive like hell this year? That's always going to be the target for them.
Absolutely. And from a team that is going to drive like hell, and that's something we can always expect, onto another team that similarly is known for being quick, and one that is new to endurance again this season, although they have been in other classes. And with saying that, not wanting to give too much away too early, as I had earlier from coming out of the bushes, it is another sister car with the 257 Impulse Racing GT3 Pro.
Two cars in relatively short succession for this team, so they can go to bed. I'm not actually sure if they had another entry, so perhaps they do want to stay around for a bit longer. But yeah, we said already this team has got variety written all over it, and two different classes: the fastest class and the slowest class, at least car performance wise. So, and again, a driver lineup that looks very strong.
Yeah, exactly. Marco Jäger is one of the drivers I've seen right here. And he is just so quick, whatever car you put him in. And with the Lamborghinis, I'm keen to see, does it work out well with the Lamborghinis? They've, of course,
Mm,
been a popular choice. And Impulse, with Impulse, they can make it work, whatever car it is.
I'm sure they
absolutely.
can.
Yeah, and just what you had said there, Samil, about the Lamborghinis. It's very interesting to see the choices that teams are making coming into it, and each car having its own distinct kind of strengths. It's going to be very exciting to see how that plays out. Now, as we move on to the next team, another entry to the GT3 Pro category, and one that hasn't been on the grid with us before, but one that we hope will live long and prosper on our grid. It is Vulcan Sim Racing in the number 239 BMW.
I looked so hard for a Vulcan saying that made sense with racing, but that was the one that was the best, and I couldn't resist the opportunity to put a Star Trek reference in there. I don't even know if the Vulcan Sim Racing team is named because of that, but I'll take it.
Well, is there a driver named Riker in the team somewhere? No? First
That's a
Commander?
very good question.
Perfect. Okay, and as we beam on from that to the next one here, we move from Vulcan to as a GT3 Pro to the GT3 Pro-Am again, and a team that we normally associate with higher downforce cars, perhaps not the GT3s. It's VRS Satellite Racing. So seeing them in something else that we're not used to seeing is going to be interesting, I think, from our end this year.
I've seen, some of their drivers I've seen elsewhere, and I'm sure, Samil, you've seen them too in all of your commentating escapades.
Yeah. They were good. Dallas Pataska is one that stands out. I saw him in the major series, I think last year. Man, whatever car you put him, he's just that fast, that good in adapting. And in the major series, they have one car for every round. And so you have to keep on changing, and they were quite good. And with VRS Satellite, they're often, of course, known to be quite good in terms of building setups. And of course, they have that link with Virtual Racing School as well, right? So that helps them out quite a fair bit. They will be right there, up there in the GT3 field.
And perhaps more importantly, another Merc. The second
Another
one.
Merc, yeah.
That's right. Very exciting.
Indeed.
And okay, the next one here that we have coming up is back to the GT3 Pros, and one of their drivers is somebody that anybody that's been on the grid with or watched the races knows to be extremely quick in a TCR. But with him and the rest of the team, they're making the shift over to a GT3 Pro entry in the 216 Pure Sims Esports BMW.
I mean, they won the race, the pre-qualifying race. So that already proves that Steen is fast, not only in the TCR, the front-wheel drive platform, but also in the BMW M4, the rear-wheel drive platform. Still front-engine car, though, so perhaps if you actually put him in a Lamborghini or something, he might not be quick, but maybe that's just me building up my own ego there.
Yeah, no, but Steen Ledger's so good. I think he's made his transition, hasn't he, from full-sun racing? And I'm just thinking, how much will this change in environment and change in the driving style of the car impact their performance? Of course, even if you put Steen aside, that's quite a strong lineup. But with him there, they have that experience and that credibility in the team.
Definitely. And another team that we're looking forward to seeing how that transition will go and how they perform across the season. And this next team is another team that we're also looking forward to seeing how they're going to do across the season. It's a team that I think a lot of people know the name of, and we're even part of setting up the McLaren Shadow program. It's Simza Esports and their number 66 LMP2.
For me, I always get a kick out of seeing different nationalities on a grid. So to see, the UAE flag there is something of a bit of a unicorn flag, but it makes me happy as sort of a stats fanatic to just crank up that difference, that number of different nationalities that we have on the grid.
No, same, and Sims are so strong. Last year, with the Sports Car Open Endurance Series, they were quite good with the LMP2. So, again, Casper, your point is preparing for IVRA, right? They're just coming in and they're
Exactly.
taking the experience to come back here.
Well, good luck to them. I'm sure that the experience across the board is going to shift over for their entry this season, and we'll see what they can do. This next entry is back to the GTE class, and a team that has been with us for a while, but goes from 3 entries last season to 1 single car entry this season. But they've shown flashes of speed in this class last season, and we think that they're going to be able to compete quite well and handle that quite well this season. It's RSR by G Performance in the 199 RSR.
Well, if anything is a sign of speed, it's being promoted from the AM class to the Pro class, which is what they did last season with one of their LMP2s. Now, there's no such thing in the GTE class this season, but if they show similar speed that they did last season again, the GTE class is just looking more and more stacked as we go through this.
Yeah, and one of the top teams, of course, in the GT Sprint Series last year. And I'm very excited to see what happens. But yes, luck was not on their side for GTEs. But then again, they're going to try again.
Absolutely, and we'll see what they can do. And another team that we're looking forward to seeing what they can do is a team that we certainly know the name of, and that has been on the grid with us for a while now, but typically it's only 1 entry, and they're usually fighting at the top with that entry. So as we move on to Team 11's sister car in the GT3 Pro-Am class, we're very much looking forward to seeing what they'll be able to do.
I think the thing I like about Team 11, I'm supposed to be impartial, but I enjoy that it feels like a smaller team. There's not that many team members there. They do the series that they enjoy doing. They of course they want to do well in them, but I get the sense that they just first and foremost are looking to enjoy their racing.
Yeah, I haven't quite seen them in many other series as well, but wherever they are, man, they are good. And I'm very intrigued, right? GTEs, they were so good last year. Again, similar car, one might say. Again, braking is quite different between the GT3s and GTEs, but they're trying hard with the Porsche. And I'd like to see this. First year, the GTEs was superb. Can they replicate something similar this time?
Let's see what they've got, and something that we're definitely going to keep our eye on. Now, as we move forward and into the next entry here, it's back to the GTE class, and it's a team that they had a troublesome debut last season, but they also did manage to collect a P2. So the pace was there, and if it's something that they can build on and keep consistency, they could be fighting at the top. So welcome back to Phoenix Esports.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they are going to do this season. The P2 they got was at Barber, which is, personally one of my favorite tracks, but also one of the busiest races, or one of the busiest tracks that you can race on with GTEs and LMP2s in the multi-class environment. We're moving to sort of different tracks now than Barber, so I'm interested to see if that performance that they showed at Barber can be converted to the bigger Grand Prix tracks that we will be seeing this season.
Exactly, right? That multi-class ability always remains, and that has been such a positive for Phoenix Racing.
Most definitely. And as we look forward to the next team here, we move from the GTEs back to the LMP2s. And it's another team that's brand new to IVRA competition. They were only founded last year, but in that time they've done a lot of league racing and have got a mix of some pretty experienced drivers. Hugo Preto and Chris Barrett have got a decade of sim racing experience each, with a lot of endurance racing included in that. So, they're bringing a lot to the table, and let's see what you guys can do.
I think I read in their application that at least our team manager has experience in running a league, So hopefully that'll do them favors too in navigating the league environment.
Yeah.
Mm.
But it happens, right? Apex have been around for quite a fair bit. I think last year they focused their efforts on doing tons and tons and tons of endurance racing. So this is going to be a fun challenge for them. First time, first season. It's always a bit tricky, but yeah, it will be interesting to see where they stack up.
Definitely another team that we're looking forward to. Which, as it turns out this year, we have a very kind of, you could say, colorful grid. There's a lot of teams that it's the first time with us, and in fact, we have a grid that is very mixed. There's not a lot of like repeats so far from what we've seen, which kind of goes against the grain of what we've normally had. And as we approach the final 8 entries here, I'm sure there's more nail biting going on for others other than Runa. So strap in as we get to the finale here, guys. So as we move on from Apex Tech, it's back to GT3 Pros, and a team that we've mentioned already, and that's been here for a while. Consistent competitor at the top, despite not having multiple cars in the same class. It is another sister car for the Geodesic Racing team in their Porsche.
And the Porsche, that's a completely different platform to the BMW, front-engined, rear-engined. I see some drivers here that did drive with us before in the BMW, so it's going to be a different approach into driving. So let's see if that is going to be something that they can pull off.
Yeah, exactly. But Geodesic, right? They're just bringing in such a big contingent. LMP2, they are bringing in this car right there. I think we saw on GTE as well. Geodesic, man, they are totally up for the challenge. And even last year, they had a club sport effort as well. So if there's one team that's properly investing their time and efforts into IVRA, it has to be Alpine Stars Geodesic.
Definitely, we know they're putting in the time, and just like they are, we know that the same can be said for the next team that's coming up. They have been around in different teams and under different names, but another team that's here to kind of prove a point, I think, and they're definitely coming in hot with only 2 drivers so far. It's the number 55 5-star Motorsport LMP2.
I should say though, on the livery front, 5-star have different color versions. I think that they should consider running one of the more brighter variations, perhaps the blue one, or maybe the pink one, Samil.
I always love a little bit of pink, but this is nice. I like that 5-star have gone for a bit of golden all the time, showing that their intention is to win. But what a lineup, right? Maximilian Fritz, of course, the founder of the team, and he is so good in setup. He was actually, of course, credited by the Hurstenwil team as one of the prime reasons why they were so good in the GT Sprint Series last year, the setups. So that can be a big strong point for them this year.
Definitely, and excited to see what they'll be capable of on the grid. And as we move into this next team, it's another LMP2 entry, one who, if they're the team name is something I'm sure they would like their competitors to be doing while they appear in their mirrors. It's IVRA Motorsports in their number 86 LMP2.
Yeah, I should explain. I wrote that note down that Julian just read out. It means to tremble with fear, a quiver.
So very nice.
I'm not sure. Again, same with Vulcan. I don't know if that's why the team is named that way, but it sure is a scary sounding name if you actually know what it means.
Yeah, and very much decked out in the classic Finnish colors. Again, it's something, right? We haven't quite seen many Scandinavian teams come in, but those who they've made an impact. You rarely ever see a Scandinavian team somewhere near the back. So this for a quiver could be a big year.
Definitely. And as we move from a Finnish team onto the next entry, it's definitely a big geographical change. And it will be another team that has 2-car efforts in their debut with IVRA, and we think that they can be a title contender in both classes that they are in. So a big welcome to Sims Esports in the GTE class as well.
And again, another orange car, which I enjoy. And of course, good drivers there. Again, drivers I would be afraid of racing against, to be honest, because they're just fast.
Yeah, seriously.
No, it's all about marrying that quickness with that level of consistency. Sims are going to have a fun time considering how good the rest of the pack is. But yeah, that orange fits in well. Not sure about those mirrors though, but I'm not sure it'll matter a lot if they're going that quick, to be honest.
Just be
Fast
a
car is a
flashing
beautiful car.
green. Yeah.
All right, and from one GTE entry to another, it's the first dance for this team, and they certainly have a ring to their name. I think that we're definitely gonna have a good time watching them, and I'm sure they're up to the challenge here in their first season with us. It's the number 150 Simtech.
I think for me personally, I haven't seen the team name before. Perhaps you have, Samil, but the driver names I do recognize just from official racing. And again, like with the Simsa entry, I know they're fast. I wouldn't want to be up against them.
Yep, first year. Let's see what they bring up to the table. Again, it's a new team of sorts. I haven't quite seen them compete otherwise, but again, I take your word for it. Farah could be right up there.
Definitely, and definitely another team to watch out for. And as we see one new entry to the IVRA grid here, we move on to another team who's going to be with us for the first time this season, and somebody that may be questionable in their driver rating. We might have to review, but it's Tommy Milner's private label Team Hype team. So, given that he's racing at Le Mans today and is a 2-time Le Mans winner, we might have to dive a little further into that, but definitely looking forward to seeing what they'll bring to the table here.
Even apart from Tommy Milner, the other drivers listed there, again, fast drivers. But yeah, Tommy Milner rated as a Sapphire, as a 2-time Le Mans winner. Something about that doesn't seem quite right to me.
Yeah, exactly. But the team has been around for a while. Private label, of course, they make some bags and beautiful bags for sneakers. That's what they want to do, actually, put their competition into a bag. But already, right, it's so awesome. Even before the season has begun, they seem to have a bit of an online war with Simsa. And I would love to see that battle settled out on the track.
They've got my favor. I'm on their side because they've got a big series logo on the nose. So I'm with them.
It's definitely a good start from our side, eh? Speaking of A and Canadian accents, we move on to this next team who will be with us for the first time as well. As Don Cherry would say, if anybody's watched any hockey in North America, a couple of good old Ontario boys and a few others. But we welcome Apex V2R to the grid in their Porsche as well.
And this is a team. I'm not sure how involved the drivers on the team are with this, but the Apex V2R team, it's a sim racing facility. So these are people who have managed to turn sim racing into a job. So they have all day to practice. So I'm sure they'll come well prepared to all the races that we put on.
Yeah, exactly. And the facility back in Ontario, I saw some pictures. Wow, they have made something special right there. And they bring that capability, they bring that credibility as well, Apex V2R.
Absolutely. And I definitely agree with what you said about WoW with their setup up there. And I might have to make the small jog up to Ottawa from Toronto to check things out. And now for the 48th entry, it's a team. We definitely have some teams who you might call or say are the Knights of the Old Republic here. They've been around for a while, but this team is definitely part of the new class and the new Republic. It's Sim Republic in their 318 GT3 Pro-Am.
They put in quite an impressive performance in the pre-qualifying race, and with some drivers that I recognize. The teams, it's a team name I haven't seen before, but the drivers, just from personal experience racing against them, competition should be well aware. I'm trying to think of a Star Wars joke, but I can't think of one.
Well,
It's all right. We may have run our quota of
Yes.
jokes here, but that's all
Competition will
right.
have a bad feeling about this. There we go.
Okay. So guys, that's 48. But as we kind of mentioned earlier, the competition in pre-qualifying and the registrations that came in were so close. It made our job intensely difficult. So difficult, in fact, that we had to add an extra car to the grid because of how close it was, and how close our decisions were internally. So with that, we want to welcome the 49th car to the grid, above the 48 that we had going into the season, and it's one that we should say here is a get out your popcorn moment for Tim, who's been seemingly waiting for a while here to see what was going to roll out for Maniti's whole team structure, but they did manage to get in with the 49th entry.
So yeah, we should explain, Tim, that this is not intentional. This is really the list being sorted by Team ID, which gave us the random order that we have seen, and it turns out that you have the largest Team ID. So there you go.
Yeah, not intentional, but fuel to a bit of the drama with the hype going on here. And with
they
that,
must be
guys.
sweating.
Oh, right. Yeah, with that, guys, we come to the end of the entry list for the 2021-2022 season. And just, to reiterate what we had said at the beginning there, a big warm welcome and congrats to everybody that's made the grid, whether returning or new. And, for everybody else, we know what it's like to be in difficult competition like this. And we do truly hope that, you'll put the energy and time in to come back and, show us that, maybe you should have been on the grid this year, or you've got something that will push other teams to keep improving themselves by you coming to the grid. For myself, I'm very much looking forward to this year, guys. I think that it's going to be, like you said, Casper, an absolute cracker, front to back for the entire season in every single class that we have. And with the new structure too, with having 2 separate seasons, teams will have an opportunity to kind of sit back for a couple months, reflect on the things they did right, the things they did wrong in the fall season, and then come back stronger when the spring season rolls around. What are your guys' kind of final thoughts as we look forward to the beginning of the season?
I share your comments on the teams that didn't make it, the ones you made at the start of the stream, and now you can tell by the strength of this field that there will have been teams who were strong that didn't make it. It's just an unavoidable fact of having a limited number of grid slots, that sometimes teams who are strong just don't quite make the cut. We do have a reserve list, and we do have a system for teams on the reserve list to make the races should there be a grid spot opening up. So I would assume that the teams who entered still would want to race. Should a spot open up. So I do encourage the teams on the reserve list to keep an eye out for that and for that opportunity. And as far as the season go, I can't wait. I think this is the strongest grid across all classes that we have seen, going back all the way to DGFX season 1, which is just unbelievable. There's a lot of big teams with multiple car efforts. There's lots of smaller teams who we know are just as quick as the big teams. So I can't wait to see who comes out on top.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, just the names. And you're so right about that, Casper. It's the mixture of big and small teams. That is what makes it so special. It's not the size of the team ultimately that gets you the win, right? It's just how much time you put in and how focused your time is, because so many teams put in the hours that it's also just like the others are able to find a more efficient way of working things out. So that is going to be all down to it. And in IVRA Endurance, you know for a fact that even if your strategy is perfect, even if your preparation is perfect, it takes a lot of thinking on your feet. And that was one of the defining factors of all the teams last year. We saw so many of them struggling with that. And that is such a special element. And I can't wait to see how it plays out over the course of the next, 6 races, isn't it? But yeah, divided, of course, into through seasons.
Definitely. And, that's something that, what you touched on there, Samil, is there's a lot of, new experiences to come for the teams that are with us for the first time. And I think that, for me personally, something that I'm looking forward to is seeing how teams with experience in the strategy that has to take place, for you to be competitive in this series with the safety cars, and how that compares to new teams and them kind of maybe stepping, maybe tripping their way through it, is going to go, and ultimately what we're going to see in the standings come the end of the first fall season.
I think it's important to mention as well. We say we're going to have some great races here, but we're also going to have some great races in the other series. Most notably the HyperX GT Sprint Series. I know there's quite a few GT3 teams that entered that we saw in the pre-qualifying race were excellent, but just missed the cut. I see Yoni there, P5 in pre-qualifying and still didn't make it. That was the situation that we had to decide on. But we do have a HyperX GT Sprint Series that is still open for registration. So if you are looking for IVRA racing, perhaps have a look over there and come back after a season of HyperX GT Sprint Series racing to see if there's a spot for you in the winter season of the Endurance Series.
Absolutely, and that's a very good point. And for me personally, like everybody has their own kind of preferences for what kind of cars they're driving and what kind of tracks they like. But the fall season of the GT Sprint Series, the HyperX GT Sprint Series, really stands out for me in terms of just I think it's going to be a difficult season. I think it's going to test drivers throughout the entire calendar, and it's hold your breath the whole time. And given the nature of the races, 2 1 hour sprints, reversing the top 20 in the second race, it's just going to be flat out and pure competitive kind of racing the whole time.
Yeah, it's just the most exciting thing for broadcasters like me, seriously, to have all the action to comment on. But man, seriously, when it all comes down, it'll be such a watch. All the chaos, all the drama, and all the strategy coming in, that is going to be relentless.
Definitely. And for those that are watching and perhaps don't like the GT3 cars yet, or maybe just haven't dabbled in them yet, the Club Sport Series is another great one to check out. We've got the Porsche 911 Cup, the GT4s, and the TCR, and of course I think something that's fallen in everybody's heart in the IVRA is the Club Cup, the MX5s, another great
Yes.
calendar, and just action-packed and fun the whole time. And with the regulations this year, it opens up the grid to some people who are a little more inexperienced, perhaps in racing in general, or racing against people who are just that next level up and that will be in the pro class. But it allows for the newer kind of like fresh racers to come in and try their hand at something that I think that is really just fun for everybody. So
Even with a rookie license?
The MX5s, it's still kind of an amber, so it's still going to be the same classifications throughout that we have. And for instance, in endurance, we see that there is a lower threshold. It's not the whole spectrum. You got to be 25 and higher. But that comes down a little bit to Amber for Club Cup, and I think with a little bit of effort, people who are new probably wouldn't have too much trouble to get there fairly quickly in time for the season, or at least for the second season in the winter for Club Cup.
Oh man, sounds exciting. But the Club Cup last year was just pandemonium. Every single race, every single time. There's just every series has that excitement to it, doesn't it? I think the weight has made it even more special.
Definitely. And I hope that we all hope that I think everybody that was waiting, for the announcement today, had a good time and is looking forward to the new season. And we won't continue on too long here, but if anybody is interested, head to the website ivraleague.com and check out the different series that we have on offer. There's another very big endurance race coming up, 24 hours, the only one with full safety car procedures in December. And drop by Discord, ask us questions, or shoot us emails if you need to. But we hope to see more people out, and certainly everybody that's joined today for the broadcast of this announcement on the grid in the coming season. Any last words from you guys?
I just can't wait to start.
Yeah,
Same.
easy peasy. Me too. All right, guys. And all you out there, guys and girls who are watching, we'll see you soon.